Greetings, citizens. Thanks for tuning in to Nindie Nation. Today we've got an exciting guest in the first of a new series where we're going to be talking to developers of all of the indies that we love to play. I'm joined by Richard Lems of Blastmode, who has most recently developed and released Nindie Nation's number 3 game of the year, Mighty Goose. Richard, how are you doing today?
Hey Jeff, I'm doing fine, thanks. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
So yeah, here I am. I'm not really used to talking on podcasts and such, but I'll try to do my best.
Hey, that's great. We want your expertise in developing games, so that's okay if your expertise is not in conversations.
Yeah, I totally suck.
And speaking of which,
at conversations.
You know, I gotta tell you, I've been going through my backlog. I think we all have backlogs, and I've been trying to chip away at some games that I started, I really enjoyed, and then I never finished. And when we scheduled this conversation, I thought, you know what, this is a perfect time to go back and finish Kunai. And I went through it, and at like 1:30 a.m. last night, I was like, I am like walking into the final boss of the game right now. Like I have done the thing. I don't want to spoil anything, but I am at the moment where it's like walk to the waypoint and get the bad guy. And I know that's the end. And I was like, I didn't finish it in time. So I had to go to bed. I was too tired. So as Nindie Nation citizens know, Mighty Goose was our number 3 game of last year. So the reason for the timing of today's conversation is that you recently announced an update coming to the game. So if you wouldn't mind, I would love to hear a little bit about that update and why some of the community would like to fire the game back up and take it for a spin, and a little bit about what's in the update itself.
Yeah, sure. So if there was one thing that stood out among all the reviews that we had on Mighty Goose is that people want more. And, well, we gave that a bit of thought, and yeah, we also did. So we decided to make another mission just to make the game feel more complete, because that's something which had been bothering me a bit also. And reading it from other people, like, yeah, the game is good, but I wish there was just a bit more. That really convinced me to decide to make another mission. So with the new mission, the goal was to make the game feel more complete. So we set out to make some more content for Mighty Goose. And that imposed a challenge on us, because with the base game, the main bad guy had already been defeated. Mm-hmm. So what do we do now? Well, Mighty Goose is a bounty hunter, so we figured it would be it would feel natural to just add a new bad guy, which pops up right after you defeat the Void King. So that's exactly what happens now. If you've defeated the Void King, once you open up the map screen, a new mission will be presented to you. Like Chonk the bunny will grab your attention and say, "Hey, look, we've got a new signal on the radar," or something like that.
Cool.
And then you go and defeat the new bad guy, because it's like, to be honest, like the story in Mighty Goose is just an excuse to blow shit up.
Yep.
Can I curse on the podcast?
Yeah, you're good.
Or can I?
You're good.
Okay, so the story is kind of an excuse to blow stuff up. So we made another excuse. And in developing this excuse, we took a good look at the game and thought, well, what kind of mission should that be? What can we add? And the game didn't really have a water level yet, so it made sense to do something with water. So in this new mission, you'll be dropped on a beach, and you'll be guided through like a water planet with a surfing segment and a submarine segment. It was really cool to work on, and the boss also uses the water in a specific way. So I won't spoil too much. Maybe I already did, but the trailer also spoils a bit. So
yeah, I think you shared essentially what was in the trailer. That's very exciting. And I gotta imagine that was a bit, kind of a challenge, because if you look at the stereotype of video game history, the water levels are the hardest ones to get right.
Yeah.
You look at like a water temple or anything. It's always the water level that's the cursed source of frustration. So, what were there specific games or levels that you look to for inspiration of how do we make this a good water level?
If there's one game I looked at, it's like Sonic 3. There's a snowboarding segment in there.
Yeah.
It always stood out to me as like a really cool segment of the level. And with Mighty Goose, it's kind of inspired by games from that era where mascots do all bunch of silly things. Like, let's make him cool, let's make him snowboard. So it made sense for our Goose to like ride a surfboard. That level is like the segment is pretty quick, but I'm pretty happy with where it ended up gameplay wise. It's not too difficult. It's just a fun thing.
That's great. And so on that topic, have you seen Sonic, the new Sonic, or the original Sonic movie? Have you seen either of those?
I've seen the original one, but I stopped halfway, I think. I don't know. I see a lot of people like it, but I guess it's just not for me.
That's fair. And I don't know how much I would have enjoyed it if I didn't have little kids sitting with me. I took my kids. I've got a 9-year-old and a 4-year-old, and they're like prime age for that level of ridiculousness. There's a big segment in the movie that is a direct callback to the ice cap zone snowboarding segment, and it is alarmingly impressive how close they get to, like, how does Sonic end up on a snowboard going down a mountain anyways? You know, they did a really good job of calling back to the transition between the levels and all of that. So I'm sitting there the whole time pointing at the screen like, oh, I know where this is from. My kids don't.
Is this
care.
in the second movie?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Ah, dang.
Yeah. You got to check it out when you get a chance and see what it looks like in action. Maybe there'll be a Mighty Goose movie someday. I know that Mighty Goose wasn't the first game you worked on, but I believe it is the first game that you made as Blastmode. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
So can you talk a little bit about, because Kunai came before, but that wasn't entirely a solo project. So could you talk a little bit about Blastmode and Mighty Goose versus Turtle Blaze and Kunai and kind of how that separation works?
Yes, I can. But let me think, because this might turn into a complicated mess.
Okay.
Well, anyway, I've been making games for quite a long time now. I guess maybe even 10 years or maybe even more. When I first started making games, it was like with RPG Maker and the Games Factory, that kind of software.
Okay.
And it's always been a hobby. At some point in my life, I started working at a web development company, which was looking for someone who did art, because that was at that point in time my main thing to do. They were looking for someone who did art because they wanted to start exploring game development, like as a side venture thing.
Interesting.
So with them, I made a few puzzle games, and it was like an exploratory thing for them also. So we were both learning a lot about how to make games and how to fail at selling them, because like there's an entire world that is unknown to you at that point of how can you even get attention of people when your game is done or during development. Like it's kind of impossible to just succeed without knowing how it works. Mm-hmm. So under that company, which is called Q42, by the way, we developed like a plan to evolve those simple puzzle games into something more. With a few of my colleagues, we started a small, like a subsidiary. So with those guys, I started Turtle Blaze, and we made a side-scrolling racing game called Road Warriors. That failed because we had launched on Steam early access without knowing how to promote our game. So we basically failed again. But because we were a subsidiary, it didn't really have any impact on our lives. Like the mother company lost some money, but it was part of the risk of doing this. So we went back to web development for a while and app development, like earning a bit of money again before we could try again, because we knew we wanted to try again. Then we ported, there came a point when we ported Road Warriors to mobile, which was a mild success. And then the Nintendo Switch came out, and we were like, oh my God, this console is amazing. We need to do something with it. With just having finished Road Warriors, we were looking at making something new. We were already working on like a ninja type platformer prototype with climbing controls that was working on mobile. But when the Nintendo Switch came out, we really knew we had to pivot to that console because it just made us so happy. We wanted to try.
Interesting. So when you saw the Switch, you kind of shifted focus and started planning that the Switch would be the lead console for Kunai.
Yeah, exactly.
Interesting.
We didn't like the mobile market anyway because it really focuses your game design on monetization, where it feels a bit dirty, like you're essentially trying to funnel people into watching ads or buying in-game currency. And we wanted to move away from that. And the Nintendo Switch seemed like the golden opportunity. So it was the right console at the right time. Then we spent 3 years, I think, on developing Kunai, released that, and it was a mild success, I'd say, because we had spent a lot of money at that time developing the game. It was a mild success. Yeah.
There's a lot of question that I've heard when people are trying to figure out what it's like developing a game. You say, and in your mind, it probably, it's history, it's past now. You say we spent 3 years developing Kunai. Okay, so how do you stay afloat during those 3 years? Did you launch Road Warriors and say, all right, we want to give this another go, so you started saving money? Or because I've seen in your history, I know that you have a Patreon for yourself. I've seen, you mentioned early access, so you've dabbled in a couple of different ways to have an income stream while you take the time to do this. So what were you doing for Kunai, and how did that work against other methods you've tried?
Well, for Kunai, we basically asked the subsidiary mother company for an investment.
Okay.
That's the only way we could do that, because we needed to pay 4 salaries for 3 years.
Right.
And a Patreon is just not gonna cut it unless you're super popular.
Mm-hmm.
So we got an investment, but not to finish the game. Our plan is to make a prototype and head over to Gamescom with that prototype and show it to publishers, basically, and ask them to invest the rest of the money we required to finish. We made a pretty cool demo, and eventually we hooked up with the arcade crew, who thought it was cool, and that's how Kunai happened, or the funding happened.
That's a really neat story. I mean, I can imagine the build up to Gamescom. So what was that? Was that Gamescom 2018 that you would have had the demo ready?
I guess it's vague in my memory.
Right. I have to imagine that is a pretty stressful time, building up to having that ready to go, and being at the show itself. And
Right.
And just earlier this year, the arcade crew has been on a tear recently. They've been finding, partnering some great teams. I think so far this year, a couple of my favorite games are Young Souls and Infernax, and both of those have come from the arcade crew. So it sounds like they've really found their footing. I can't remember what else they published before Kunai, but I think that might have been one of the first big games that they were able to get that kind of mainstream notoriety with. Well, so once Kunai launched, I think you said it performed okay. That then helped you get funding or be able to start working on Mighty Goose, or was there a break in there? What kind of happened between working with Turtle Blaze and starting Blastmode?
Yeah, there was definitely a kind of break in there because working together with Turtle Blaze was amazing. Like, we are a group of friends who just happened to be making games together. But at some point during that development, I noticed that my personal dream was really to have a company of my own, which is not a subsidiary, like living under a bigger company.
Okay.
I'm it's the classic artist curse. You want to be free. You want to be a free soul. And it just didn't fit for me, the whole Turtle Blaze story. So during Kunai, I decided I would like to pursue my own path, and I started Blastmode, and I started doing Blastmode under Patreon because that seemed like a good starting point for getting at least some funding in.
Mm-hmm.
And whilst I was working on that Patreon, on Patreon, you ask people to give you a bit of support in they give you money, and in return you give them like a look behind the scenes of what you're doing. You post your sketch material, your raw stuff. That's basically that was the setup for me. And there was a point, there was a goal I had set. Like, you can set goals on Patreon. If I reach 10 supporters, I'll do this or I'll do that. I had set a goal for Mighty Goose because I needed something, and I was looking through my old sketchbooks. And Mighty Goose was one of the characters I had drawn. Eventually I reached that goal, and then basically I was forced to make Mighty Goose. And the game kind of started as a joke, and then it started living a life of its own, became more serious, and now here we are.
And how has, because obviously Mighty Goose is in Road Warriors, and they have very similar art styles. So
No, he's not in Road Warriors because that's a chicken. But yeah, the art style is very similar. So I get why you say that.
I saw the large bird with the goggles on. I made an assumption.
Yeah. He's basically the same character, but
but there's definitely, I mean, you can, if you set Road Warrior and Mighty Goose and Kunai together, it's obvious that Kunai is the one that looks different. I think the other two share a very similar art style. So what I think it was in your Patreon video, you talked about being an artist and then kind of working through learning the design and development aspects. So on, those last couple of projects, how did your role change as you started getting more involved in the creation of the games beyond the art?
That's a good question. Yeah, my role has more or less always been a bit of the same.
Mm-hmm.
I guess in Kunai I was a bit more specialized on the art department because we had a bigger team, which allowed me to focus a bit more on the art. But I'm always very involved with everything I do because I like it. So when I see something that I want to do, I do it.
That's great.
And for me personally, if I couldn't be involved in the concept phases of a project, my motivation would quickly drop to zero.
That's good, though. It's good to know how you stay motivated. So what about once you decided to start Blastmode and you get all of that up and running and such, how do you, one of my favorite game soundtracks of the last few years was from Mighty Goose, and that was by Dominic Ninmark, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
So how do you hook up with Dominic? How do you find people to help, when you're running the show and, you're probably the primary person responsible for saying, hey, I'm from Blastmode or I am Blastmode. How do you go out and find, such talented musicians and others to help with games once you're doing everything on your own?
Actually, I found Dominic via Patreon. One of my patrons was also a game developer, and he had a friend who made music, and he was like, yo, I know someone who makes music. He makes really cool music. And it turned out he did the soundtrack for Blazing Chrome, which was also a title published by the Arcade Crew. And yeah, he's really good. So he introduced me, and yeah, it took off from there. Other than that, I just browse Twitter a lot. That's what I do when I procrastinate. And I basically follow every artist, composer I think that is interesting, that is cool. And when I want to work with them, I basically just send them a message. Yo, you want to do something together? And maybe they'll say no, and maybe they'll say yes. I don't know. We'll see.
That right there is, I mean, that is one of the most powerful lessons of running any type of business or outlet on your own. So many people say, how do I get started? Whether it's making a game, making content, working with people that you admire, whatever the case is, the answer is you just do it. You just have to start. And it sounds like you've done that multiple times throughout your career in games. So that's very inspiring, not to mention that you've developed some incredible games. When we were talking about setting this up a while back, you had shared, and actually the thing you said that made me say, oh, I should talk to him and record it, was when you were mentioning that the timeline from the launch of Mighty Goose until, I guess now, until rolling out the update, was in some ways even more challenging or stressful than the development process of the game. I wanted to hear more about it when we were chatting, but I decided, no, we'll save that for when we talk live and I've got it recording. So I'm curious if you can share more about that.
Yeah, well, at the end of development, I basically noticed my energy was gone. At that point, all of the subroutines going on in your mind that keep you working just shut down because you're done. And I was at a really, really low point in my energy. And it feels kind of stupid, but it's just, I guess I had been working too hard. But then we discussed, it would be interesting to do a DLC because people want more.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I basically said, okay, let's do it because I also want to. I want to make the game feel complete. So I started working on that, but I really noticed that it was going slow, like slower than ever before. And usually I'm pretty quick at putting things together. So I was really I was surprised by the fact that I actually needed rest. That's one of the things we ran into. Like once you're out of the entire design process and then having to start up the whole design process again, surprised me with how much time it actually took to put the concept of the level together and the layout, because like the game has 9 levels, I think, and I basically pretty much had a system down of, okay, first I take these steps, then I block out the level, then I make the art assets, then I rearrange the art assets according to the blockout and maybe make some changes, do a few tests, etc. And that system of going through the level, making the bosses, had been basically shut down completely, and having to start up that all over again for a new boss, for a new enemy. It basically kicked my butt.
I can imagine. Yeah, it's a muscle. You were flexing it for a couple of years all the time, and then you let it rest for a while.
Yeah, exactly. So the development time took a bit longer than I wanted, and because the game had already released, the game had already been released. So when we wanted to have some new translations done, it took a bit longer than the previous run had, and all sorts of delays came popping up. So the game, the new content update has actually been done for a while now, and there's all kinds of reasons why it's only coming out now, but it is what it is. It's coming out, and I'm happy with it.
And it launches on April 19th, is that right?
Exactly, April 19th.
That's very exciting. We will certainly do a stream of it on the channel. Correct me if I'm wrong, this is a free update, isn't it?
Yeah, it's free. Yeah.
So how does how does that work? How do you decide we're going to pour more resources into this and give it out for free? I'm sure someone has told you, trust me, this is a good idea. Maybe not. But how do you come to that decision?
Well, yeah, it was basically my own idea. It's a gut feeling thing because way back when we signed the contract with Playism, we had agreed to do a downloadable content update, and we didn't really discuss it any further than that. But when the game came out and people said, "Well, the game feels great, but I wish there was more," it didn't feel right to make downloadable content and charge money for it when people basically said that they basically felt that the base game wasn't like complete enough, didn't have enough content for their for the price point, and I kind of agreed with that. So I wanted to make it right. So the decision was basically made by the gut feeling only, and it might not turn out to be like a financially the best decision ever, but I just want it to feel right. I want people to be happy with what they buy.
Well, and I hope you can also look at it from the perspective of what you're saying is the game didn't feel complete. But the way I looked at it is I just had so much fun with the game. I blew through it, and then I wished there was more, which, I mean, if you're going to have any criticism, just wanting more has to be one of the better ones to receive, right?
Yeah, exactly. But that's like the good way of saying it. You could also say, "Oh, well, this game doesn't have enough content, and it costs $20." So
that's fair. That's fair.
there are also reviews that say that, and like hearing it enough from both sides, I think this is the right decision.
And to that point, when games are on sale, the ones that we focus on are very often the ones that have recently had updates or are, hitting a new lowest price and all of that. So, that's a regular, we see games like Spiritfarer and Cozy Grove and Children of Morta as games that have been regularly updated with new content. And those are even something like Cozy Grove. It's not a game that I care for. I don't like those style of games, but I know a lot of people do. And so every time they have a new update, we talk about it. So I hopefully you guys get that same attention when the update drops for Mighty Goose.
Yeah, I also hope so. And of course, we are also bundling the update with a sale.
Excellent. What date does the sale go live?
Oh, well, also the 19th.
Perfect. Well, then we will certainly help you promote that as well.
Yeah, thanks.
So the question that you probably don't want anybody to ask, what's next?
Oh, yeah, I'm fine with you asking. I'm currently prototyping a card-based game.
Oh, cool.
I really don't know what's next, to be honest. I have 3 prototypes currently, because that's basically the process I have. I just make stuff without showing anyone, or maybe just showing hints of it on Twitter. And when something sparks, then I work on it more. And if it keeps interesting me, then it might turn out to be something. Currently, I'm working on a card-based game, which aims to mix elements from Pokemon with card battling. Not going to spoil too much about the battle system itself, but there are a lot of digital trading card games out there which are multiplayer, and I would love to make a single-player digital trading card game which people can enjoy in the way you would a Pokemon campaign. I've spoken to some gamers, and I guess they are part of my target audience because they typically hate playing digital trading card games with other people online. I don't know, it's just, I guess it's an introvert thing.
Absolutely.
But I think there is a group of people that would appreciate such a game. So I'm trying to make that.
Absolutely there is. And I fall squarely into that camp that, there's a lot of us out there that would love that notion, but if we're not playing with, people that we know, or we're not playing on the couch, if you play more than 3 games, then you're going to get blown away if you play something online. There's a reason why I don't play any online shooters, because I play other things. There's a reason I don't play Smash Brothers online. It's because I play other things, and I know if I go online, there's like a 12-year-old that's going to wipe the floor with me. I'm going to feel it's going to kill my ego.
Yeah, exactly. For some people, gaming online is just not relaxing, and it's stupid that group of players shouldn't be able to play like a digital card game, because I know a lot of people who like the concept of digital card games, but are just put off by that factor.
Yeah, and one of the hardest things of covering all of these games every week is not turning every single description into it's like Shovel Knight, but with cards. Or, it seems like so many games right now, it's the A plus B equals C, but now there's, but it's also a roguelike.
Yeah.
And so on. Putting together all of those, what you've described, I don't know that I've seen. So that's exciting.
It is. I don't know if it's going to work yet. I think it will, but that's part of the prototyping phase. Just trying to find a new and unique angle, because there are so many games coming out that like just making a clone of something isn't going to work out.
Mm-hmm.
Luckily for Mighty Goose, it did. But like I said, like that started out as a joke, so there's my excuse.
And that's a big part of it. There's not many games that are funny, and Mighty Goose is funny. It's a riot all the way through. So it sounds like the way you speak about the game, it sounds like it was a success for you. I know that it made it to Game Pass. I'm sure that was exciting as well. I mean, how did it perform on the Switch? What kind of telemetry, statistics have you seen from Game Pass? Are people playing it? And I know that you can't share everything, but whatever you're comfortable with sharing about how it's been received, and how that impacts you would be fantastic.
Yeah, I can talk a bit about that. Like when the game released, there was a lot of buzz around it, of course, which was very nice. A lot of people seemed to like the game, and then it died down a bit. But the Game Pass deal was coming up, I knew. So a bit later, the game launched on Game Pass, and I was basically blown away with the reactions, because before that point, you get mixed reactions because people are critical of how they spend their money. You'll get reactions like, well, this game is not worth $20. It was great, but very short. But none of that exists on Game Pass, because people just are browsing through what they can play. And when they encounter Mighty Goose and they give it a go, they'll be pleasantly surprised. And I've been surprised by the reactions. It turned out to be a very nice boost in energy.
Good. I'm glad to hear. Yeah, and of so many games on Game Pass, you definitely have one of those that is, you can download it very quickly. It's not a huge game file size wise, and you can get a pretty good impression of it from the first 30 seconds you fire it up. So I can imagine people jumping in and being pleasantly surprised. I know I was thrilled just to see it again and be able to play through it on a different platform. So.
Yeah, it kind of felt like a second major launch of the game. It was very cool.
Good. And personally, I looked at it and said, great, now I can get achievements. That's what I needed to go to go play through it again. I'm very glad there are no achievements on the Switch, or I would never get anything done.
Right. You're one of those.
Yeah, sometimes. Yeah, that's for sure. Well, Richard, I want to make sure that you have a chance to let everybody know where they can find you. I know that you've got some cool prototype stuff out there on Patreon. I know that you've got an itch.io page that has a bunch of games that you can play just in the browser. I think those are from your game jams. I don't want to take up too much more of your time, so I would love if you could let the audience know where they can find you and how to stay tuned for more, and then we'll make sure that they're aware Mighty Goose is coming back, and we'll let you go from there.
Okay, the Mighty Goose update is coming out April 19th. You can play it on any platform you want, because we are basically on any platform.
What about, it sounds like your card game is going to be exciting. Where can people learn more about that?
Well, they can follow me on Twitter on RylemTwit, but there's not much to see there right now. But if you want to stay in the loop on development, screenshots, or animated GIFs, then I guess that's the place to be. And otherwise, check out Mighty Goose on your favorite platform. Check out the update, water level with surfing, everything, submarines, all that cool stuff. check it out.
Absolutely. And next week we will certainly be featuring it on the stream. So
Sweet.
if you don't get a chance, swing by and check it out there. And Richard, of course, you're welcome. It's 10 o'clock at night our time, so I don't think that's very conducive for your schedule.
No, I don't think so.
What's that? Is that's like 4 a.m. for you?
Yeah,
I think?
something like that.
Yeah. All right. Well, Richard, thank you so much for your time. Best of luck with the launch of the content update. Very exciting to hear from you, learn a little bit more about your story. So hope everyone goes and follows you, checks out Mighty Goose, and look forward to seeing what's coming from you next here in the near future.
Cool. Thanks for having me, Jeff.
Thank you, Richard.